take a close look at your screen. This is the southern Lebanon-Israel border, and you can see plumes of smoke at this hour. This, as the Associated Press is reporting, Israel's Air Force is carrying out dozens of airstrikes this early Monday on southern Lebanon. This as Israeli military called on people in the area to immediately evacuate homes and other buildings where the Hezbollah militant group is accused of storing weapons. Separately, Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip killed 8 Palestinians, including 5 children, this Monday morning as well. This information coming from Palestinian medical officials. Joining us live this morning to further discuss this breaking news alert is Ken Gray, Distinguished Lecturer of Homeland Security and Terrorism with the University of New Haven. Ken, thank you so much for joining us bright and early.
Good morning, Janae. Glad to be with you again.
So looking at that screen, it really puts into perspective all of the missile strikes happening at this hour. The concern is that this could be the breaking point to launch Israel into that full-scale conflict with Hezbollah. If you could catch us up, please.
Yeah, we've seen a real intensification of exchanges across the border between Hezbollah and Israel. Israel claims that as of this morning, they struck more than 300 Hezbollah targets there in southern Lebanon. And so this really is an intensification. We've seen strike and counterstrike starting on Friday. You saw the attack on Ibrahim Akil, a Lebanese or a Hezbollah top commander. He's the one that is the United States says is responsible for the 1983 bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut. And he was planning to do a 10-7 type attack into Israel from Lebanon. And so to stop that, Israel struck against his group there. And with that attack, this has really intensified throughout the weekend. 150 rockets were launched by Hezbollah, which in return, Israel struck at all their missile launchers throughout the area. So far, this has been an air campaign. However, Israel has moved another division there north to join the one they already had stationed there along the border. So they may be preparing for a ground offensive. The overall plan is to do an incursion across the border and to clear a security zone 1 to 2 miles deep into Lebanon. To that effect, Israel has been sending out warnings to 19 villages and towns along that border across into Lebanon, telling them to evacuate the area. The evacuation is for the air campaign, but it may also be in preparation for a ground incursion.
Ken, you mentioned October 7th as it relates to the Israel-Hamas war, but as you can imagine, within the Israeli community, there are concerns that a repeat of October 7th could happen with this conflict with Hezbollah. Obviously, as you mentioned, the airstrikes are already underway, but the captivity of hostages, that's a concern this morning. Also a concern if the conflict with Hezbollah could impact conflict with Hamas. Could you explain how the two work together, but also at the same time, very separate conflicts?
Hamas negotiations for the return of the hostages and a ceasefire, that's been on hold for like the last 2 weeks. There's been no movement on that whatsoever. However, there has been an intensification in pockets within the Gaza Strip. So despite the fact that we seem to have shifted our focus north with these incursions across the border, nonetheless, there still is activity going on across the Gaza Strip. In fact, there was a rumor that Yahya Sinwar may have been killed in one of the bombing attacks there in Gaza Strip. So Hezbollah engaged Israel right after the October 7th attack. On October 8th, Hezbollah joined in on this fight with Israel in support of Hamas. They claim that they will continue their fight with Israel until the war in the Gaza Strip ceases and Israel pulls out of there. But that being said, it looks like Israel has recognized Hezbollah as the next future threat to them, just like Hamas did their incursion into Israel. Israel is concerned about this threat to their northern border. After all, they've had to evacuate all the towns in the north there, and that remains evacuated for the last couple of months. Israel may have finally decided that since they already have the troops in the field, since they already have been hardened by the fighting in the Gaza Strip, that maybe it's time to deal with this Hezbollah threat. The beeper attack and the walkie-talkie attacks that occurred there last Tuesday and Wednesday, this may have been a surgical attack to be able to take out the leadership, the senior members of Hezbollah in preparation for this ground offensive. So we will see if this continues to intensify. The world has been speaking out against this. Leaders from around the world have been warning Israel not to try to turn Lebanon into another Gaza Strip. But nonetheless, this fighting continues. Oh, by the way, Syria also launched a couple of missile attacks on Israel. So it's not just Hezbollah, it's not just Hamas, it is all the puppets that are controlled by Iran are potentially joining in.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, Ken, you mentioned Hezbollah, Hamas, Yemen Houthi rebels. With all of these different partners coming against Israel, does Israel even have the manpower to fight all of these different entities at once? If we look back, you might recall when we were speaking maybe about a month or two ago, we had those Orthodox Jews that were protesting, saying they were being forced to have to join the Israeli Defense Forces when they thought their religious rights would allow them to go to seminary school.
Yeah. Keep in mind that Israel's military is citizen soldiers that get activated, and when they are activated and fighting a war, they are no longer engaged in the economy there of Israel. And so this has been almost a full year now that they have had this dent on their economy due to having to put so much manpower in the field and keep it there. Previous wars have been very short. This is almost a full year, and Israel's military is not really built for long-term conflict like this. So I think that that's an excellent question about whether they have the manpower to be able to open up a new front that might take time. Past attacks on Hezbollah into South Lebanon have been relatively short, a couple of months total, not a year like this. And so we're in all new territory for Israel. However, that being said, Gallant just made a statement that that the Israeli people will have to be prepared with this new phase of the war. And so I think that there's a real possibility that we may see ground troops cross the border into South Lebanon to try to make that security zone, to clear out that area so that Hezbollah is not able to launch their rockets into northern Israel. Those rockets are not very sophisticated, but that's the majority. Hezbollah says they have 150,000 rockets and missiles, but the majority of them are these unsophisticated rockets that have no guidance, and by clearing out that security zone, that would make them less effective.
Yeah, Ken, based on the screen, it doesn't look like the conflict is going to subside anytime soon. And I actually saw a question from a viewer, and I wanted to ask you with your expertise. They were saying, obviously, you know, the conflict dates far back before October 7th when we saw that tragedy happen at that music festival. And they were saying, depending on who you ask, you know, the conflict is over territory, it's over land. Again, depending on who you ask about why this conflict is even underway. But they were saying, let's say, worst case scenario, Hamas does get ownership of certain territory. Well, then does Hezbollah fight Hamas? What happens at that point?
Yeah, Hamas and Hezbollah are currently linked together because of their both opposing the forces in Israel. But Hamas is Sunni, Hezbollah is Shia, and so they are naturally, on a normal basis, are enemies of one another. Hezbollah is a militia force in addition to be a terrorist designated foreign terrorist group, Hamas is a militia also in a insurgency. In addition to being a designated foreign terrorist organization. And so, whether they would fight one another in the absence of Israel, potentially, but at the same time, they are both united right now against the common enemy of Israel, as is the Houthis, as is the Syrian militias. And so Israel has enemies on all sides of it. And they are losing a lot of the world's support for their position with this continued fight in the Gaza Strip. And so if Israel opens a northern front, they may be doing this on their own. They may not receive the support like they have inside Gaza so far to date.
Ken Gray, we thoroughly appreciate your expertise on this breaking news alert. Thank you for joining us bright and early this Monday morning. Anything else we need to be keeping a watchful eye on in the coming hours? I would say days, but as this conflict is ramping up, we're literally getting alerts every few hours at this point.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Israel put out a warning to the Lebanese people to evacuate those towns. I think that warning to evacuate those 19 towns and villages right along the border, again, maybe in preparation for this ground incursion. So despite the fact that they've said that this is all, they are focused on an air campaign, I think that you don't put two divisions up along the border unless you're planning to use them.
Great perspective there, Ken Gray. Thank you so much again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day.
Thank you.
And as we further discuss the very latest as it relates to this conflict, take a look at your screen. This is video we are just now getting into our Live Now from Fox Studios as it relates to this breaking news conflict. We're learning the Middle East, they are teetering on the brink of a larger escalation. This as Hezbollah launched more than 100 aerial attacks on Israel. And as you just heard with Ken Gray, Israeli Defense Forces striking back in response this morning. Fox News correspondent Mike Tobin joining us from Tel Aviv, Israel, with the latest.
After a week in which thousands of Hezbollah fighters were injured, top commanders were killed, Israel's chief of staff said if Hezbollah doesn't understand now, it'll get another blow until it does. With the rockets flying, we've got video of one of the rockets that made it through Israel's defenses and impacted in a small town near the port city of Haifa. Rocket barrages came at Israel all night long with the greatest intensity in the morning hours, and that was followed by attack drones entering Israeli airspace. In light of the rocket attacks, the Israeli Air Force increased attacks in southern Lebanon. The IDF says they hit some 400 rocket launchers aimed at Israel. Israel's president says the Jewish state is fighting for the free world. Israel's prime minister says the increased intensity will sustain until residents in the north can return home.
They haven't stopped for a single day attacking us. No country can accept the wanton rocketing of its cities. We can't accept it either. We will take whatever action is necessary to restore security and to bring our people safe back to their homes.
In Beirut, a funeral was held for a top Hezbollah commander, Ibrahim Akil. He was killed along with 15 Hezbollah operatives and approximately 21 civilians, according to the Lebanese health ministry, by an Israeli airstrike in a Beirut suburb. At that funeral, Hezbollah's Deputy Secretary General spoke and said they will continue to support Hamas in Gaza. Hezbollah is ready to face every military scenario, and the war has entered a new phase, an open-ended battle of reckoning. Israel's chief of staff says the IDF has many capabilities that have not yet been operated. In Tel Aviv, Mike Tobin, Fox News.
Mike, thank you so much. Again, giving you another live look at the southern Lebanon-Israel border. And my producer, Taylor Anderson, giving us another live look. We're working to pull this in just so you can get another look at the scale of this conflict at this hour. Pulling this shot in for you now. This is coming from a city in Lebanon. And you can see as we are discussing this conflict, as it continues to ramp up, another missile strike. So again, this conflict won't be dying down anytime soon. And of course, as we get these different images and more breaking news alerts, we will share them with you right here on Live Now from Fox.